Hi everyone, I'm Rincey and this is Rincey Reads. Today I'm going to be doing a quick book review on Monsters, A Fan's Dilemma by Claire Dederer. This is a nonfiction book that's mainly like a collection of essays and like sort of like pop culture criticism, I suppose you could call it. In this book, Claire Dederer is basically examining this idea of like separating the art from the artist and like what you do with all of these monstrous men who have created works of art that are beloved, and kind of like what do you do as a fan of these pieces of media and art and all of these things once you know this truth about a person. So this is a book that when I originally heard about it, I was resistant to picking it up because part of me is like, I'm kind of sick of this conversation. But I kept hearing people talking about this book and just like giving it glowing, reviews and stuff like that, and just talking about how much they enjoyed this book and the thoughts and ideas that were expressed by the author, that I was like, all right, let me give it a chance because, I shouldn't be quite so dismissive of these things so quickly. And so I'm really glad that I did give it a chance because I do think that while the idea behind like separating the art from the artist has been discussed a number of times, I think that the way that Claire Dederer approaches this topic is unique enough or interesting enough that it feels worthwhile. I think that it is something that most people wrestle with to a certain degree, and I think that it's interesting to see sort of how she deals with kind of like the mental gymnastics of enjoying art made by terrible people. And it's interesting to see someone else kind of go through their thought processes when reviewing and looking at art and media that were created by people who did terrible things or involve people who have done terrible things. So all of the chapters in this book have a person's name attached to the beginning of them, and she uses them as a way of exploring basically what it's like for fans of this work to engage with their work moving forward. But it's not about like the people themselves. Like the author says this a number of times throughout the course of the story, like she's not trying to investigate what these people did and like judge their work against the things that they've done and trying to give some sort of answer in that way. This book really is about the fans themselves and sort of like the work that they are currently doing and probably will continue to do. Like the very first essay is very personal because she's talking about the fact that like she loves the movies created by Roman Polanski and just her own journey of reckoning with, what he's done, but still just having these like life-changing experiences with these films. And how do you remove those experiences from your own life? She wants to know like if she's able to view the art in a quote unquote objective way anymore, and whether or not they will still feel as like full and rich as they originally did. And if they do, like what does that say about her? And is there something wrong with her because of the way that she's feeling about certain things? And there's like a number of different scenarios that she goes through. She talks about how various people view these things, the fact that there are some people who, create those very hard lines of like, I refuse to support this piece of art or these pieces of media because of who's attached to it. There are the people who are in the extreme opposite direction and very much feel that, pieces of art are pieces of art. And there's a lot of like really interesting things that she brings into the table here, talking about how race and gender play a role in the way that we're approaching all of these things, how different people and their actions are viewed differently, things like that. And I like the fact that she's not trying to create like sort of this calculation of a way to judge work in the future. It's like the exercise that she does also, I think, gives people a framework of like, yeah, like everyone's going through this, and these are just some of the questions people are asking, and these are the different ways people are approaching these situations. This isn't a book about like these people are bad and this is why we should throw everything that they've ever created in the trash, because if anything, Claire Dederer is actually arguing the opposite, and she's wanting to find a way to work through her emotions basically when it comes to all these topics, which I think all of us have to do kind of to a certain degree. I will say that there's a point when the book for me started to take a dip. I think some of the essays towards the end, especially the ones that were around some various like famous women who were labeled as monsters, and a lot of times like when it comes to women, their monstrosity from the public comes from the fact that they are considered like bad mothers. And so a lot of those those essays are specifically conversations around like motherhood and the expectations of women and the expectations of like women to become mothers and what they should be like when they're mothers and all these different things. And like those essays, while I see the connection, felt weaker in my opinion compared to the rest of the essays. I don't know if it's because I'm not a mother, and so therefore like while I'm like a part of those conversations tangentially by being a woman, I'm not like directly affected by them, so maybe that's why. But it definitely does feel like those specific essays felt a little bit looser in their thesis compared to the other essays, or they felt looser to the thesis of this overall book compared to the other essays. There's a blurb on the back of this book that I thought like really summarizes this book well. It says, by guiding us through her critical dilemmas, Dederer performs an act of generosity. She allows the reader the space and encouragement to interrogate their own beliefs. And I really feel like that summarizes my feelings about the book as well. Like, I like the fact that a lot of what Dederer is doing here is providing sort of these open-ended thoughts. It's basically like she's thinking out loud, and her thoughts are creating the space for you as a reader to also engage in these questions and thoughts and exercises almost. And it kind of like made me as a person like really reflective on, you know, the people that I've chosen to not support anymore for various reasons, and even just like my reaction to other people. Like one situation that happened like really recently was that I was, you know, having a conversation with someone and they mentioned something about R. Kelly, and I have like such a strong like, you know, no, not okay like reaction to R. Kelly. Like I don't want anything having to do with him. I'm not listening to his music. I'm not like supporting anything related to his music. Like I like internally cringe even if his music is used in memes and things like that. And like I passed this like mental internal judgment on this other person because of the comment that they made about R. Kelly, because it wasn't as strong as mine. And like after reading this book, I'm like, oh, like everyone is going to come to different conclusions about what works best for them. And it made me like question my own just sort of like judgmental nature when it comes to things like this. And it also, I feel like, made me think more generously about other people and sort of where they fall on the spectrum. Like obviously some things are not okay in my opinion, but also there's a spectrum to reactions to everything. And so I think this book made me think about that spectrum a little bit more and made me want to view other people with more generosity than maybe I have in the past, which I feel like is high praise. So yeah, I really enjoyed my experience with reading this book. I definitely think it's worth picking up. Essay collection, so I feel like it's pretty quick and easy to read through. The one thing I will say is that like if you are not familiar with some of the stuff she's talking about, I do still find it to be pretty accessible. But I also find that like the more you might know about a person's piece of art, I feel like the more I connected with those essays. But maybe it's because I also feel like, for example, there's an essay in here about Michael Jackson. So obviously I know Michael Jackson's music and I know everything around sort of everything that's come out about Michael Jackson. So that's one that I've personally struggled with, so, or wrestled with, I should say. And so maybe that's why I felt a stronger connection to those essays. But overall, this was definitely a worthwhile read and definitely one that I would recommend to other people. So yeah, those are my quick thoughts on Monsters: A Fan's Dilemma. Let me know down in the comments below if you read this book, what your thoughts were on it, or if you have any questions about the book, feel free to leave that down in the comment section as well. So yeah, that's all I have for now, and thanks for watching.